Food and Wine Insider is a weekly look at a $1.5 trillion industry touching every American.
And I need no words to introduce Katherine Frankstone to you. She's the head of Grey Ghost Bakery. Katherine, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, without further ado, since you and Ann know each other so well, I turn it over to Ann Daw, our co-host.
Thanks, Don. I'm really thrilled to have Katherine Frankstone on the Food and Wine Insider Show, as I've had the privilege of visiting her facility and seeing how she makes these really yummy cookies and treats. Katherine, tell us about your background before you seriously considered being in this business in 2009. What were you doing, and what did you think your future was going to be?
Anne, that's a really interesting question. I actually started out as a little girl baking cookies. I wanted an easy bake oven when I was about 6 because my friend had one and thought it was really cool to watch that little pan go down the conveyor belt. And my parents thought that if I expressed an interest in baking, that I needed to learn how to do it in the real thing. So they pushed a chair up to the kitchen counter, and my dad taught me how to bake. So that became a hobby and a pastime. And I went off to college and thought I would go to business school, but I also thought maybe pastry school would be really interesting. So I thought about going into the food business just out of college, and determined that wasn't the right fit for me at the right time. So went off to business school and figured that if I ever did get into the food business, I wanted to own it instead of working my way up. And so went and got a business degree and worked in banking for a while to learn a little bit about how businesses were run, and then moved back to South Carolina with my new husband. And before we knew it, we had children, and so I stayed home with what would become our 3 sons, and as an outlet, ended up getting involved with a group in Columbia, South Carolina that founded Adventure Children's Museum, which is the largest children's museum in the Southeast. So for more years than you can believe, I was a permanent volunteer, and but eventually Adventure Children's Museum was born, and it's an amazing institution, and it became bigger than we ever anticipated when we first sat around a kitchen table thinking that it would be a great addition to Columbia, South Carolina to have a hands-on museum for our children. So once that was up and running, I had an itch. The other thing that I thought about doing in college was to go to law school. Talked myself out of that at 22, and so at 40 decided that maybe I had the discipline to do that one exam at the end of the semester thing, and went back to law school at 40, and thought that I would practice, but by the time I got out, our children were in middle school and high school, and it just didn't seem like a very good fit for the lifestyle of my family to be a new lawyer with very little control over my schedule when I had teenagers. So fast forward to 2009, our oldest went to college, and I realized that the empty nest would be staring me in the face before I knew it, and thought maybe finally this would be my time to have the business that I had envisioned when I was 22. So that's how that evolved. So I've done a lot of different things, and am probably the most overeducated baker you ever heard of. So now we have Grey Ghost Bakery.
Katherine, I think it's so fantastic that I listen to so many women who kind of have reinvented themselves. It's sort of like not one career trajectory, but it's really sort of this love of learning and love of doing things that you're really passionate about. And so I think that's really fantastic. Charleston, South Carolina seems to have become a mecca for specialty products. And you came there at the beginning of your business. Why did you choose Charleston?
We actually started the business in shared bakery space in Columbia. And when we were outgrowing that space, we looked around briefly for commercial bakery space in Columbia. And at the time, all of our children were out of the house. And we looked around and thought, wow, if we're ever going to relocate, now is the time to do it, because before we buy that nice big oven, we need to make sure that we want to live where it lives for a really long time. And we had spent some time with friends down here in Charleston, and it's such a nice place to live. We really moved down here for lifestyle reasons, and picked up and moved the business down, brought our production manager with us, and then only discovered once we got here how vital an entrepreneurial community there is here in Charleston, particularly in the food business. And I had been aware of some of the other specialty food businesses that are here, but didn't know half of them. And so it's a really supportive community. There are a lot of resources in Charleston that exist to help local small businesses. And so from a business standpoint, it's been a phenomenal place to be for Grey Ghost Bakery.
And I'm sure everyone asked you this, but how did you come up with the name Grey Ghost?
When I was little, and still now, I went to a family beach house at Pawleys Island, South Carolina, which is a small barrier island about an hour and a half north of Charleston. And the island of Pawleys Island has its own resident-friendly ghost, the Gray Man. And the Gray Man is a protective ghost. If you see him, you need to know that a storm is on its way, and it's a sign to leave the island and head to higher ground for safety. So when we thought about what we wanted to name the company, we wanted it to have a sense of place and a sense of connection to my family history, because we started out with family recipes. And we settled on the Gray Ghost as the name after the Gray Man, because our original recipes were handed down in my family very much in the same way that my grandparents told us the ghost stories on the front porch of the beach house. And so that's where the name comes from.
That's a fantastic story. Tell us a little bit about how big your facility is, and how many cookies do you actually make in a day?
Well, we can make about 12,000 cookies in a day in a shift. We currently only work about 1 to 1.5 shifts a day, depending on the time of the year, and right now only about five days a week. So we have significantly more capacity in this building than we currently use. So we have lots of room for growth, which is great. But we made about 1,200,000 cookies last year, if my calculations are correct. So it's a lot of cookies that we put out. Okay, and
what's the shelf life of your products, and what are the typical ingredients? What makes the Grey Ghost cookies really special?
Well, we use premium ingredients, and they're old-fashioned butter, sugar, flour, and eggs. We use really good vanilla, really good butter. We use natural cane sugar, and then premium spices and fruits and nuts and things that we add in depending on the variety. So what differentiates our cookies more than anything else, I think, is that they're basically homemade cookies. We just do exactly what I do in my own kitchen in a bigger bowl here in our facility. So they come out tasting like they just came out of the oven, as if you had baked them at home. And actually, a really good trick is, if you want them to really taste like they just came out of the oven, you can put your oven on about 350 and throw them in for about 2 minutes on a cookie sheet. Pull them out. Your house smells like you just baked a fresh batch of cookies, and they'll be nice and warm and chewy. But even without that, they stay chewy and soft. So unlike many cookies on the market that are sold as packaged cookies that are sort of shortbread based, that are harder and crunchier, ours tend to be soft and chewy.
And does that impact the shelf life of the cookies?
Well, we've got a 3 to 6 month shelf life depending on the variety. So the cookies that have nuts in them have a 3-month shelf life, and the other flavors have a 6-month shelf life. And I think, yes, if you compared it to some of the other cookies on the market, the other varieties might have a bit longer shelf life, but we are sold in the bakery section usually of stores, and then we ship directly to many customers. And so our cookies are basically baked fresh daily and then shipped out. So that 3 to 6 month shelf life has served us well.
Wonderful. We've been talking with Katherine Frankstone of Grey Ghost Bakery. Katherine, what has been the biggest challenges in bringing your products to market?
Because I'm an overgrown home baker and not a food scientist or a food production expert, probably the biggest challenges have been learning how to take our home recipes and scale them up and make them consistently well in larger formats or larger batches. And we're still considered a small batch company, and each cookie is tossed by hand in sugar before it's trayed and baked. So we really are doing exactly what we do at home. So probably the biggest challenge is just making sure that we can do that on a consistent basis, because I want everybody who tastes a Grey Ghost cookie today to have the same experience 2 weeks from now or a year from now that they enjoyed the first time they tasted one.
And if there's anything that you would want to have a do-over on, what would it be?
Oh, I'm going to write a book about that, Anne, actually, one of these days, about everything not to do as a small business owner. I would probably have outsourced operations experience earlier, and actually we still haven't really done that. We still are, running all the operations just with a very lean team. But I would have gotten financial advice on how to run a company earlier than I did. It's just too impossible to wear all the hats as a small business owner and get everything done well.
How many people work with you in the business?
That fluctuates seasonally. Right now we have my husband and myself. We've got a shipping/customer service director, and then a production manager, and then a bunch of production assistants. At any given time, that fluctuates. We have probably between 6 and 18 assistants at any given time, depending on the time of the year.
Okay, great.
So 15 to 25 people probably.
Okay. What's the most unusual cookie you have created?
Probably chocolate cayenne, I think. Our most popular cookies are lemon sugar, molasses spice, chocolate espresso, and chocolate bourbon. And we created chocolate cayenne a few years ago. It's probably the one that gets the most raised eyebrows, because people think it might be too spicy, and it's really not. It's just got a nice little kick at the end, because you don't even taste the spice until a few minutes after you've eaten the cookie.
And is that the one you like the most?
I have to weigh in on molasses spice. If I'm perfectly honest, I've been making that since I was about 8, and we tweaked it a little bit when we created Grey Ghost Bakery, so it's a little bit different from the original recipe. But I'm staring at the original recipe framed on the wall here in the bakery conference room. But I don't start eating that one because I'll eat the whole bag or more, because it's chewy. It's consistently always chewy. It's rolled in turbinado sugar, so it's got a nice crunch on the outside when you first bite it. And we make it with crystallized ginger and other spices, and it's just delicious.
In a packaging where you can actually see them very clearly, that must be a challenge from a breakage standpoint. How do you distribute the product so that the consumer sees all of their deliciousness?
Well, we started out with our 8-ounce bag being packaged in a clear, or 8-ounce size being packaged in a clear cellophane bag, and that the cookies held up surprisingly well. We had a couple of varieties that maybe were a little more crumbly than others, but we just recently introduced a box, and it still has windows so that you can see the cookies, but it'll protect the cookies much better and be able to stack on the shelf. And we designed it so it has a horizontal and vertical orientation, so that the cookies, you'll be able to merchandise it on the shelf in a variety of ways. And we're really excited about that, because we have had some problems with breakage over time, or just in handling, sitting on the shelf. The cookies in the bag sometimes would tilt a little this way or that way, and so we went with the window box so that we can have them be more protected over time. And then we also have a 4-ounce canister, which we designed after we started the company, and we designed that canister specifically to protect the cookies. But it's a clear canister, so you can see through it and see the product when you buy it. And then our single-serving 2-pack, I guess, is small enough that we've really never had any problems with breakage in that size.
So it sounds like there's a lesson learned in all of that in terms of protecting the protecting the product, but also making sure people can see it so they can really appreciate what goes in. Where can people buy your cookies, and how does the price compare to others on the market?
Well, we currently wholesale in about 34 states to premium grocery stores and specialty retailers like Whole Foods, Taste in Virginia, Westbourne Market in Michigan, Cardullo's in Massachusetts, so high-end gourmet stores generally. And you can also buy them online at www.greyghostbakery.com, and we ship all over the country every day. And as far as price point, they are a little bit more expensive than some other cookies on the market, but not by much. When we first started, again, going back to what would you do differently, I sort of backed into our pricing structure by looking at some competitors on the market and basically mirrored what a very popular cookie company was doing at the time. That company has since gone through some changes and has been able to lower its pricing significantly. So it's not really in the same ballpark, but basically we just copied what another premium cookie company was doing when we started as far as pricing was concerned, and then backed into that to make sure that we could actually produce these and make money.
Sure.
So
and
that's how that got started.
And Katherine, again, we've been talking with Katherine Frankstone of Grey Ghost Bakery. I want to continue the conversation on where you sell. What proportion of the business do you think is online versus at retail?
Right now, it's about 40% online compared to 60% wholesale to retailers.
And I would think that's a challenge from a shipping standpoint. How do you manage that? Do you ship at FedEx or UPS? How do you afford to do that?
We generally ship with FedEx or USPS. We find that FedEx handles our boxes well. For the most part, our larger wholesale shipments go FedEx, and then our online smaller boxes generally go through the Postal Service because that seems to be more cost effective. As far as breakage, knock wood, we have very few problems with damage in shipping, and probably actually too much to my surprise, an amazingly low number of issues with that. We pack in cardboard shippers, and we put cushioning material in with the cookies, and depending on who the end customer is, that varies. We've got a more retail option for our online orders, and then our wholesale orders get a little bit more industrial packaging. But we just really haven't had that much of a problem. Online, we do have a flat rate shipping and handling fee per address, and then we are able, luckily, to pass along the shipping costs to most of our wholesale customers.
And do you also sell on Amazon, or do you find that it's mainly direct sales to you?
Right now, it's mostly direct to us, and then through some other online e-commerce sites, but where we do a drop ship kind of program. Mm-hmm. We have tried to sell on Amazon in the past in a variety of different ways, and I have not yet figured out how to unlock the key to having that be a really high volume source of business for us. When we've wholesaled to Amazon, we realized that those cookies in a bag didn't fare well with the Amazon shipping structure because they didn't handle those cookies as lovingly as we did, and so we did have some breakage with that. Luckily, those customers realized that it wasn't a Grey Ghost issue, it was an Amazon issue, but we quickly said that's not really how we want our cookies to arrive. So we withdrew from Amazon under that scenario, and then we've tried to sell sort of vendor direct on Amazon and as well as through a fulfillment house where we would be able to qualify for prime shipping. Neither one of those really yielded a whole lot of volume. So I haven't yet figured out the key to optimize our presence on Amazon to get a lot of visibility. So that's on the to-do list, but we're busy enough with some other things that I haven't quite gotten that far yet.
Do you think, Katherine, that the acquisition of Amazon, of Whole Foods by Amazon, could bring an opportunity?
I do think that's true. Whole Foods is a very good customer of ours here in the South region, and we are actually looking into expanding our presence with them across some additional regions, which would be wonderful. I think Amazon's acquisition has brought more traffic into Whole Foods. So to the extent that we're on the shelf in Whole Foods, there are more purchasers coming into those stores. So that's good for us. And I do think we will figure out that Amazon piece sooner rather than later. We just haven't quite figured it out yet.
Yeah. What else do you hope to be making in the future?
We will probably expand into some other flavors. We have had a total of 12 flavors in the past. We retired peanut butter and peanut butter chocolate chip a few months ago because they just weren't selling quite as well, and so we might retool those and bring them back at some point. But we've also got some other flavors that we're working on. And then we also think we'll end up working on some savory items as well as possibly some cakes. I've got some family cake recipes that we'd like to explore, and possibly some pralines. So it's just kind of a matter of making sure that we have enough people back there in production to do all the things that I haven't, all the ideas that I have in my head.
Excellent. What's the best advice you ever received on being in business?
Know what you don't know. And to me, that's actually really hard because until you make a mistake, sometimes you don't know that you don't know something you're supposed to know. But rely on outside help. Find advisors who can help you fill the gaps in your own experience and your own education, and rely on them. And don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to seek those experts out when you need them.
Yeah, that's great advice. And what advice would you like to pass on to a budding entrepreneur?
I would say if you're going to open a business of any type, you absolutely need to love whatever it is you're doing, because you will be living and eating and breathing it pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a really long time. And so if you don't love what you're doing, and you don't love what you're talking about or you're selling or you're producing or all of the above, then find something you do love or find something else to do. Mm-hmm.
I would add to that, it's both about loving what you do and loving who you're doing it with, because
that's true.
You spend a lot of time with the people who are, part of the business with you, and trying to make it happen. So they have to be part of almost your community. Talking about community, is there anything that Grey Ghost does with the community, either from an outreach standpoint or education standpoint, or just giving back?
Well, we do a few things. I'm regularly invited to donate cookies to various causes, and we choose those that are important to us. My husband is a Vietnam veteran, and so we support Wounded Warriors of America, and we support some environmental projects. We try to keep our charitable donations pretty close here in the community, but then we also reach out to the vocational rehab folks here in South Carolina. So we've got a number of employees who are hearing impaired. We've had some autistic employees before. Actually, we do have an autistic employee now. So we like hiring differently abled employees, and it makes for a really wonderful, interesting, warm community. So if you go into our bakery today, there are probably 3 people who are signing, and then we also have some non-English speakers. So we've got some people who translate for us, and it makes for a very diverse workplace back in the bakery, which I like.
Oh my goodness, I think that's just fantastic, and thank you for sharing that, because I think that's also an important piece of being part of, not just being in your business, but being part of the community, and that also upholds you and you uphold it. John, I think we're come to the end of our time, though I could spend lots of time with Katherine, and And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Ann has been talking with Katherine Frankstone, creator and leader of Grey Ghost Bakery. A link to her website will be on foodandwineinsider.com tonight. You can hear this and all other past and future programs on foodandwineinsider.com. And you can also participate in the short survey telling us what guests you think you should be joining the show and how to improve our offerings. Also, we're happy to announce that we're now also available on iTunes. Katherine, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you both very much. This has been a lot of fun.
For us, too. Thanks, Katherine.
To be successful, most restaurant owners require extra capital from time to time. When you need funding to renovate, buy equipment, or manage cash flow, you don't have time to track down financial statements or wait weeks for a decision. That's where Kabbage can help. Kabbage gives small businesses access to a line of credit of up to $200,000. Apply online and you'll get a decision right away. Since Kabbage is a line of credit, you can take the exact amount you need. You never have to reapply to take additional loans, and you'll only pay for the funds you use. Kabbage has helped more than 230,000 businesses from every industry, and with $4 billion in funding, Kabbage is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and was named the Forbes Top 100 Companies twice in a row. Check out Kabbage at kabbage.com/foodandwine, and you'll get a $50 gift card when you qualify. That's kabbage.com/foodandwine.
Line of credit is subject to credit approval. See terms and conditions. All Kabbage business loans are issued by Celtic Bank, a Utah-chartered industrial bank, member FDIC.
You know, and healthy foods has been around for a while, and one of the proponents, when it wasn't as popular as today, is Dennis Deschaine of Al Dente Pasta. I myself never realized how good pasta made the healthy way can taste so good. It's actually in the last couple of weeks that I've really grown to enjoy it, and I've enjoyed Al Dente Pasta. Now, Dennis Deschaine heads it. He's here today to talk about Al Dente Pasta, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Ann.
Well, thank you, Don. I just want to start by introducing Dennis Deschaine, who, along with his wife, Monique, are the owners of Al Dente Pasta Company. They're out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. They've been in business since 1981. Dennis, it's just wonderful to have you on Food and Wine Insider.
Well, thank you, Ann. It's always nice to talk to you, too. Appreciate the opportunity.
I would like to start by having you talk about the days leading up to creating Al Dente Pasta. You, in fact, have always been an entrepreneur and actually had a windsurfing business. Please talk about that.
The specialty windsurfing business? I guess I've always been involved in something specialty. Yes, back in the day, in the early 80s, actually late 70s, windsurfing was coming on strong, and especially in Europe. And we as a small group of people, not only enjoyed it as a hobby and saw it maybe as an opportunity to be part of a fast-growing, exciting business in the United States, which it was for quite a few years, and we were part of that. We had a windsurfing store, and actually ended up with 2 locations, and school and rental program in the Ann Arbor area. And at that same time, Monique was my wife, who was working at a specialty food store in Ann Arbor after getting out of University of Michigan with her degree in psychology. Perfect background for getting into the specialty food business, and the two of us were working together on both of our businesses, and so the windsurfing was the beginning, part of the beginning of our careers together.
And as you said, Monique your wife, who is French, has always had a passion for food. I suppose before foodie became a word, I think I would describe Monique as a serious foodie. And she learned how to make pasta by hand from an Italian master, Marcella Hazan. Can you tell us a little bit about that story? Because that really impacted what al dente pasta became.
Yes, Monique did always have a passion for food. It stems back to her earlier days as a young kid, going over to be with her relatives in France. Her mother was a French war bride and arrived in Warren, Ohio in 1942 or 3, actually probably about 44 after the war. And she was born and raised around the Paris area, and so Monique would be able to go and has fond memories, the most fond memories probably of her childhood, or some of the most, sitting at tables with her relatives, eating foods that her friends back in the States weren't. That included goat cheese, of course, and pâté, and all the French delicacies that were rare in the States at the time, but are very common today. Go ahead.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how she became involved with making pasta by hand.
Well, how that happened was after getting out of school, there was, as so often, there'd be a period of time when you're thinking about the next step, and originally it was the next step was going to be go to Chicago to pursue a career in the Chicago area. As it turned out, we became more involved with each other and thought, we enjoyed each other's company. And Ann Arbor was a fantastic community, a lovely community, supportive community to be part of. And Monique enjoyed that then and still to this day. And a lot of things were going on. A lot of people were starting different companies. The first cafe was started by a friend of ours, and they brought cappuccino to Ann Arbor. And this a couple by the name of Sandy and Steve Cooper opened up the first specialty food store on Main Street in Ann Arbor, and they wanted to have some help. And Monique went to work with Sandy and Steve and put together their cheese department. So they were the first people to bring goat cheese into the city of Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor is known for a lot of things, the university, good sports, good music, and Zingerman's always comes up when you think of when you talk about Ann Arbor. And Ann Arbor's first introduction to goat cheese wasn't from Zingerman's, and they give credit to Sandy and Steve Cooper, who got to get the whole European food scene going in Ann Arbor. So, and Monique was part of that. So she went to work for Steve and Sandy, and from that we got more and more involved in the food business. The background of eating good food, and introduced to the French food, as I mentioned a minute ago. The pasta was going from being spaghetti to pasta, and reading trade journals and excited about business, and we had youth on our side, and decided to get into the pasta business. And Monique came home and said, well, we're going to do this, I'm going to do this, and she needed a partner. And of course, everybody tells the story a little differently, but so we, I started to help her out, and we ordered our first pasta machine, and we used to bring that machine out at night and make pasta. And at the first year, which was in 1981, in fact, this time of the year, because the first time we sold a bag of pasta was at the Ann Arbor Art Fair in 1981, and that art fair will be, commencing next week, I think it starts. And anyways, we didn't have any drying equipment, so we spread it all out on the tables, and we had to have it all cleaned up every morning by the time people came in to get the day's work underway, which was about 7 a.m. So we would do that. We would close down, make pasta till 1 o'clock, come back and clean up what we had, and have to come back to work the next day by 10 o'clock. So that's how it all started.
And she did sort of learn how to hand roll the pasta, and she's preserved that sort of approach to making pasta, because your pasta is different. I mean, it's not like any other pasta on the marketplace. So I would love you to talk a little bit about what makes al dente pasta really different.
Well, you asked a good question, Ann. Thank you for that, because I just wouldn't want to tell a story about the beginning of al dente and not mention Marcella Hazan, who at the time was, and for many years was the front runner in Italian cooking. And Sandy, being a scholar that she was, the woman who owned the Complete Cuisine, said to Monique, okay, if we're going to do this, you're going to do this, we got to go find out how to do it the right way. And we got to do it a little different than other people. And that's, of course, what we wanted to do, make it special. So Sandy and Monique went to Brooklyn, and Sandy was, because at that time there was no Food Network, and chefs would come to Complete Cuisine or stores like that in other towns to do food demonstrations, and they'd organize cooking schools, and she had a cooking school, and she'd organize these events, like Jacques Pepin came, Marcella Hazan came, and that's how it was happening, and that was how it was starting, people getting out and learning how to do new techniques, make food differently, and came from these people that would travel around and do these different various cooking demonstrations, and you could participate in it. So Monique and Sandy went off to Brooklyn to visit Marcella, and she showed how to make the pasta and the blending of the flours. And what makes it a little different, it's a northern Italian style of pasta. It's the fact that it's all rolled out. When you make a pasta, you push it through a die, which is an extrusion process, or you roll it. And like you would maybe do at home if you were going to either own one of those little rolling machines or pull out to the real old ways, pull out your rolling pin and mix your flour, your eggs, and whatever, and roll it out. And when you do that, you're kneading the dough. And when you do that, you're stretching the glutens that are found in the flour. And when you stretch those glutens, you get a noticeably different texture than when you press it through a die. Both processes work well and are great for different styles of pasta. Shaped pastas are 90% of the pasta you're going to buy is going to be extruded, because you can do it quicker and you can make all the different shapes. But this northern Italian sheeted pasta was a niche, and it certainly is can be a real nice it can make a difference in a pasta dish, in a fettuccine, a flat noodle type dish. It can be a real complement to a meal, or complements to a store if they have a sheeted pasta. And so we set out to do the sheeted pasta, and we kind of took the old world technique of the sheeting and combined it with a new world twist with the different herbs, spices, and all natural flavors that we would add to the pasta to come up with a kind of an American style pasta. 3-minute cooked pasta. Well, I should add too, when you do, the texture you end up getting is a homemade texture, meaning it's got a lighter noodle, but still has a good chew, and a pasta that'll cook in just 3 minutes. And we're known for that homemade texture and quick cooking time, and the wide variety of different styles of pasta we make to enhance the cooking and dining experience.
There are so many things that make al dente pasta really different. And I've been to your facility. I've seen the operation of the hand making of the pasta and the drying it. And I don't think many people know that, of course, I keep referring to you as a Renaissance man, as you built the ovens and the equipment on which al dente is made. Take us through that, Dennis, because there's not too many entrepreneurs that do that.
Well, you're 100% right. Not many do, and you're dating me. I mean, you're showing my age by getting me to talk about those early days of making things. To tell you the truth, it's funny, Ann, when I walk through some of these shows, I do a lot of trade shows, as you know, and the Expo West show and the Fancy Food show, and our business model, which was making the product and bring it to market, is not as popular as it once was. In fact, it's a little bit archaic. Excuse me. And because back then, that's what I think more manufacturers did. A lot of small companies, they would buy an oven or buy some equipment, make product, and bring it to market. Nowadays, I think, and you could correct me if you're wrong or comment on this if you would, I should say, a bigger percentage are marketing, sales and marketing efforts. They come up with good ideas, good recipes, and go to a commercial kitchen and have it co-packed for them. So, but to get back to your question, yes, we were doing it the old school way. I mean, we came from humble beginnings, and so this the only thing we knew was to work hard, and didn't have a lot of extra money. So I had experience in building. I've been worked in the carpentry, and so we built and all the drying equipment. I'd seen dryers. We went to an Italian restaurant, actually, and looked at some equipment, and I'd seen a dryer that had a machine at the time that had been built in Italy, so I got the concept from there, and then that's what I first did when we were at Complete Cuisine. And then as we moved it around, I started building drying rooms, and so we have static drying rooms at about 10 of them now at our facility in Whitmore Lake, Michigan.
I think one of the things, it's not just the pasta that's distinctive, but you've surrounded it with packaging that's really distinctive. This is not a pasta that comes in a box. Describe the packaging that Al Dente comes in so the consumer can really appreciate what you bring to the market.
Well, the packaging is a clear cello bag with a round label, an oval label, I should say. There's always a debate about packaging, and I think, and there's always a lot of conversation about what makes a product successful. And there's, a lot goes into it. And packaging is one of those pieces. Obviously, you've got to start off with a good product. But you have to get the product, draw attention to the product somehow at the market, in the marketplace, on a store shelf, which isn't always easy to do. These sets are very crowded. There's more choices than there are people to choose. And so we went with this clear cello bag, and at the time, a real small printed label, and it's kind of evolved from there on the labeling side. But the bag has always been the choice of packaging we have used. Now, if you got a consultant to walk through here, which we have over the years, then they want to look at it from a complete, just efficiency standpoint. They say you should go to a box. You can do it quicker. There's a lot of equipment for it. A lot of people use boxes, but however, there's something about honesty in the packaging. I always felt like our bag kind of initiated the sale. You could get people to, when it's done right and it's on the shelf, it'll catch your eye, and that will get people at least looking at your product. We're our specialty. We put a lot of time and effort into it, and our price is higher than other products. So you have to give people value too, and I think that that package helps convey the value to get people to take a look and think about, should I spend the extra, whatever it is, depending on it could be $1 or it could be $1.50 more. And so we've always stayed with that clear bag. We tried a box one time. We brought new products on. We're working on now another product that we're going to be bringing out soon. And we go right back to the conversation. Should we do a bag or a box? We did do a pouch on our gluten-free. That's worked out pretty well because the pouch is a popular package these days.
I think one people don't understand in establishing a business, and you've done this with Monique, it's really important to create those relationships with brokers, distributors, and buyers. And you've really done that by meeting with them individually in shows and so on. How have you talk a little bit about what it takes to do that, to expand the reach of Al Dente Pasta across the U.S.?
Well, it takes a lot of trade shows. It takes a lot of getting out, meeting people. It depends how you want to build too. Again, we talked a minute ago about us making our own equipment, as far as the drying rooms and a lot of hands-on, and how you want to grow and how quick you want to grow is determined about budget often, and so you have to always live within a budget. So in our case, we were we wanted and needed to live and work within a rather small budget, but we wanted to grow, and we always felt that the opportunity to grow the business and turn it into a national brand is one that we wanted to pursue, and so we did that by mainly I go out and do most of the traveling and meeting with people around the country, and over the years I've gotten to know a lot of people in the different markets, and brokers and store owners and both small and large. And in the case of large, of course, I don't know the owners, but I've been in a lot of sales calls and made presentations to a lot of the chains around the country. And a lot of it starts with doing the trade shows, as the Fancy Food Show, Expo West. All the distributors have different shows, and it's kind of a slow build by networking with people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I know I've been aware of a lot of the products you've introduced in response to consumer trends. I would love for you to talk about that, because you've had some really interesting introductions, and it always seems that you're sort of tapping into what's trendy, whether it's the squid ink pasta, or you've done products with chia. Talk about that and how you think about innovation when it comes to pasta.
Well, it's an interesting. It's not, maybe not so interesting, but it's a good time it's a very interesting time we're living in, and in a lot of different ways. And food is especially a fun time to be alive and eating. And I say that Don's opened with the comment about the trying healthy pastas and enjoying them, and didn't really do that till recently. And this is what we're seeing quite a bit happen. We are we're considered a specialty company. We're specialty in a lot of ways, and I think that's we do follow. We do make good pasta, specialty pasta can be in addition to a real nice gourmet type meal. It's a bit of an overused word, but it's a good word. And then at the same time, we make products that are more diet specific and good for you pastas. And I think that we're finding, we all would agree that that the good for you and healthy foods are very popular now, and they're growing, and they should be. For good reason, because they're really starting to taste good, and people are very, doing preventative lifestyles, so they want to live longer, live healthier, take care of themselves. And so in our business, we've seen that grow quite a bit. We're still adding products to our specialty side, but we're putting a lot of emphasis and energy into diet-specific pastas and pastas that are good for you. And in particular, like we have a reduced carb pasta. It's called carbonata, which came out quite a few years ago, but there's a big uptick in business there. In fact, it's the number one fettuccine on Amazon at this time, because there's so much, people are watching their weight. This product is reduced carb. Again, it has to taste good in order to get people to want to eat it more often. You can maybe you can get people to suffer through a bad meal once in a while because they think it's good for them, but there's not sustainability there. So our approach, of course, was getting something that was reduced rather than no carbs, and so people that can enjoy a small portion. In this case, the Weight Watchers are really onto it, and they can have a cup and a half of pasta, and I think it's 3 points on the Weight Watcher scale, which is good, I think. And diabetics too, they can enjoy this pasta with the lower carbs and keep their sugar levels where they want to be. And so, and it tastes wonderful. I mean, if you were to cook it up against our regular fettuccine, you can notice a little bit of a difference, but very little. It's a little chewier. So we're seeing a tremendous growth in our what we call pasta with benefits, or good for you pastas, diet specific, and we've added, of course, gluten free along that line. We've got some plant based pastas coming out, and we're real excited about that side of our business.
So we're speaking with Dennis Deschaine, who, along with his wife, are the owners of Dente Pasta. Dennis, what advice would you give to a budding entrepreneur and what it takes to be successful in what's now a very competitive marketplace?
Well, like everybody who talks about starting a business, whether it's gadgets, or pasta or pate, you got to have passion. Really is a key ingredient and to success, I think. I think, coming up with an idea, being willing to work hard, and not back away from the first no's and you get are important. You have to really hang in there with these in this day and age, in any day and age for that matter. And I think that the food business offers a lot of opportunity, but it's a business that requires a lot of work and a lot of passion to make it happen.
I look at the Al Dente story and I almost feel like it's a love story, because for you and Monique to have done it for such a long time, and you have a wonderful marriage, you're wonderful people. How do you do that? How do you manage when they're, I always look at you guys and I sort of go, I don't think they ever argue.
Well, and any good love story, there's always a couple arguments in there. To be real, I mean, you have to. Of course, we have our issues at times, and and it's not for everyone. It's working with your wife, your partner, your husband is either works real well or doesn't work at all. And there's a lot of stories where people were married, got into business, and I know stories and friends who ended up either getting out of the business or getting out of the marriage, but still working together on the business, or staying married. It doesn't always work. And you have to be careful. I mean, you have to. Well, careful's not the right word. You have to be, conscious of what you're doing, conscious of, how the relationship. Try to separate the work and the relationship. Not that that's an easy thing to do. One bleeds into the other so quickly, and different personalities approach this differently. So it's a tricky, but it's a balance. But when what is in life? You have to. They all have their challenges. I suppose.
And how many? No, I'm sorry, Dennis. I was going to ask. How many people actually work with you and Monique, and for how long have they been a part of the Al Dente family?
Well, we have the total of us. There's about 20 of us that work here, and it varies. We've got people who've been with us 25 years, and then people who've been with us 4 years. Usually, we try to create a decent working, a working environment, and treat people with respect. We think that that's real important, and do what we can to keep them inspired. Mm-hmm. And that helps, keeping people, getting people dedicated. And again, the problem with food is, again, the margins are thin, and it's difficult to you have to inspire people and get them to want to come to work for a lot of different ways. You just can't give them up. Often you can't do it with just money.
Yeah. And if you had anything to do over again, you've been in the business such a long time, what would it be?
You ask good questions, Ann. Get me thinking here. What would it be? I'm not one to say I wouldn't do anything differently, because there's a lot of things, but I probably would. What would it be? I maybe worry so much, just by nature, and be so concerned about, are we going to be able to keep this thing going? Are we going to be able, where are the orders going to come from? Where's the, how are you going to pay the bills in the summertime? All these different things. When you look back on your experiences, it's easy to say, well, I didn't need to do that, but some of it is a personality, some of it is driven, from necessity, so I would say, I always recommend enjoy the ride. If you can't, it's really an important part of it. And I'm preaching when I say it. I'm probably preaching to myself as much as anybody else, because now that we've been in it so many years, you realize that you got to have blind faith. And if you do have blind faith and you do work hard, and things will come along, things will work out, I should say. You can't come along, you get lucky. There's a saying, I'd rather, be lucky than good, but I think that I'd like to be good, and I think you can create luck by the harder you work, the luckier you get. So, but I think
I like that expression. That's a great expression. I want to ask you one last question, if I can. I can't believe our time is up. What lies ahead for Al Dente Pasta, and how are you looking to manage succession?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a question I probably couldn't have answered if we had this interview 10 months ago, because, you and I have known each other quite some time, and I'm sure you've asked me that question. What we've done at Al Dente is after doing it ourselves for 38 years, we have found ourselves a real good partner, a partner that has like values, like approach to businesses, but has different strengths than we do. And we feel real fortunate that this in the last year we've been looking for a while, trying to decide what you always got to grow. You always got to find a way to be relevant in today's market. And, we were running out of capacity with our current facility, and of course that affected what we could do as far as new products and new ideas, which not only drives the business, but it drives your enthusiasm. So we've aligned ourselves with a wonderful company from Europe that we're doing just that. We've got tremendous opportunities with what they have as far as equipment and ingredients and ideas and all the products that they want to make. We want to make and work on new ideas together. So that's been a lot of fun. That's all kind of been unfolding in the last 6 months or so.
Wonderful. Well, we've been talking with Dennis Deschaine of Al Dente Pasta, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Don. And thank you so much, Dennis, for being on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome, Ann. It's wonderful to talk to you.
No, very definitely. I've been listening to Dennis, and I tried his products after the Fancy Food Show, and I was really impressed. We've been talking with Dennis Deschaine. He's one of the founders of Al Dente Pasta, along with his wife, Monique. A link to his website will be on foodandwineinsider.com tonight. You can hear all of our past and future programs on foodandwineinsider.com. And you can take a survey and tell us who you'd like to hear in the future. And also, we're happy to announce we're now on iTunes, and you can hear all of our programs there. Dennis Deschaine, thank you so much for being with us today. But before you go, Dennis, your website again?
It's www.aldentepasta.com, all one word. ALDENTEPASTA.com.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for being with us.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to Food and Wine Insider with Ann Daw and Don Mazzella. Want to join us on a future show? Contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Until next time, have a passion for food, wine, and profits, and think of our program, Food and Wine Insider.